Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So first of all, we would like to thank you and entire VB team for their supports. So this is the first time we are presenting in VB, and today we have a very nice story to tell. A story which has a magic, a spells, a witchcraft, which is done by a modern day cybercriminals. Just like a skill which mixes the potions. So today's attacker, especially the ransomware operators, are blending traditional tactics with the more sophisticated method to create a devastating cyber attacks. Human-operated ransomwares are growing fast, and understanding them is essential for protecting our customers and our systems. So in this talk, we will focus on attack strategies and emerging attack patterns observed in the human-operated ransomware attacks. So we'll present how these attackers are gaining initial access to the organizations with the novel techniques and crosses hybrid boundaries by pivoting to the cloud. Then we'll see how these attackers are targeting virtualization infrastructure to create a bigger and bigger impact. So my name is Vaibhav Deshmukh. I'm a security researcher at Microsoft. I spent around a decade in cybersecurity, and for the while, I'm tracking in human-operated ransomware attacks.
Hey everyone, my name is Sudhanshu, and I'm working with Microsoft as senior security researcher in an industry from around last 10 years, previously working with amazing folks from FireEye, McAfee, and Quickheal. We have a third partner as well, Ashutosh Rena. He's also working as senior security researcher with us. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it to this conference, but yeah, we want to thank him as well. So today, let's kick things off with daily headlines that have become very common in last few years, which are mostly related to that ransomware attacker are compromising multiple organizations, leading to millions of dollars of loss. Now, these attacks are more than an automated script that we used to see in traditional attacks previously. But now the attacks are owned by the human itself who decide what next to do based on the victim environment. To further illustrate them, we call them as human-operated ransomware. These are kind of attacks mostly operated by the human, where they manually infiltrate system and adopt their techniques and procedure based on the victim environment. For example, for victim 1, they follow TTPs like PSExec, VMI, and then tampering with security product 1. But for the victim 2, the same threat actor might be using a different techniques like using the net scan and then going ahead with different method and different payload. Why? Because the victim environments are different and the steps are taken based on the security posture and other things which is present in the environment. Initial thing started with how it goes. It goes mostly with the same which happened with traditional, like they get the access of the initial victim environment. Either they attack themselves using any initial infection vector, or they buy it with access broker, which is part of RAS chain. Then they traverse and spread. What they do? They do the credential theft, they do the lateral movement. The motive behind of doing this is to understand the victim environment and take the next step, or understand the critical assets into the customer environment like domain controller, file server, so that they can get a whole complete control of a network. Then again, based on this, they move to a final stage. They deploy ransomware or do exfiltration, and sometimes do both, that we also called as double extortion. The attacker, this shows like how attacker are advancing in the attack kill chain based on the victim thing. So with this, let's move ahead with some of the interesting methods that we have seen in the wild for human attacks. Starting with a social engineering, a very old infection vector, right? A very known one, but this time with a twist. How attackers are using it, there is a twist in that. Starting with the curious case of voice phishing, we call it as wishing. So in wishing, what the attacker does, attacker reach out to the service help desk of a company, or you can say IT support staff, and then, they impersonate as IT support staff and service help desk, and then reach out to the customer. What they do? They reach out to the customer to solve a problem which is ongoing in the environment. For example, email bombing. They target the employee with email bombing, where the inboxes get flooded with unwanted emails and make the employee unusable, the service of email. They reach out to that victim, ask that, like, there's ongoing attack going on in our organization, we want to solve it. They even do some basic checks, like ask the employee ID, manager and team. Why? Just to look legit, so that the employee also understand they are belonging to the company environment. Important thing to note, the attacker already gets hold onto the basic information of the employee, like team name, manager. That's how advanced the attack become, because they have done all the homework, whom to target and what is required to get it successful. They already have that. After getting the victim confidence, they ask them to install, get them access of the machine with the help of Quick Assist or any other RMM tool which the organization uses. So in our case, we see that they have used Quick Assist. They ask for the sharing permission. Once get, boom, they already have the access of the victim environment. Legitimacy based on the employee. Here they do the good stuff as well, and in the background they install the persistent that they need. In our case, we have seen that they have installed the Screen Connect, for which they abuse it in the later. And since they have the persistent, they laterally moved into the other stage and did the bad task or the impact that they want to deploy. Another interesting thing, group which we want also abuses the social engineering, which Microsoft, you say Microsoft track as Octotempest, also known as Octopus, Scattered Spider, and UNC 3944. Octotempest is a very well-known financially motivated group, and known for hybrid attacks. We are targeting on-prem as well as cloud infrastructure is their expertise. These group uses techniques including reaching out to organization service desk this time. Previously, they are acting as a service desk help desk, but now the table has turned. They are acting as an employee. They just call it to service help desk. They show it that they are panicked, and they say that I am not able to access my account. Please help me with the reset password. Service help desk, being generous, they ask for basic information, like, yeah, tell me which team they already done the homework, they have that information. When asking for the MFA, like just approve the MFA on your mobile, they come up with different type of excuses, like, I am traveling abroad, I don't have, the internet is not working, the mobile is not allowing me the MFA due to something. They or even say that my phone is lost. Now, interesting thing is, security folks, the support ask for more information, like, tell me your mobile number, so that they can just confirm whether they already have the information. Based on that, they do share the information with some excuses and all, and eventually get it successful for the password reset. So this has happened in the wild with one of the victim. Then, if this technique does not work, right, what we have seen, they even send a threatening messages to the victim or the employee, like they send the message that I have your address, please give me your information or I will send a shooter to you. This is very worrying thing, but we do have seen this as well from this threat actor. Another interesting method which we want to highlight is SIM swap thing. So here in this attack, there's two parts. First part is the victim where the attacker wants to attack on. The second part is the employee which it is attacking, they already have control over the telecom partner of that employee. So that if I am using a service provider of telecom 1, the attacker already has the compromised access to the telecom 1. What they do, they SIM swap into that environment of my mobile number or edit the call forwarding on my mobile number and then request is password reset. So what it does, with the help of resetting the telecom database or telecom customer, they are now able to access my with the help of SIM swap and call forwarding. Also, we have smishing and smart fish attack. Smishing is mostly targeted for sending a basic fake pages, fake portal where they can log in and provide the your credentials. So it mostly target the new hires where they are not sure, like they just send a message, please log into this portal. New hire generally clicks and do the things. And then we have the standard phishing, which is specially crafted by Octo.
Yeah, so here all the boring stuff happened, okay? So as Sudhanshu talked about the Octotempest, which is one of the first group we see which pivot from, hybrid to, like pivot from on-prem to cloud environment, and we call it as a hybrid threat. But what is a hybrid environment? That is like this question arises always, right? So hybrid environment is nothing but an organizational setup where it combines on-premises systems, third-party applications, and the cloud, including both the private and the public cloud, like Azure, AWS, and GCPs. So particularly after COVID-19 pandemic, like a notable portion of the workforces has been, working from home, and since that time, the requirement of the hybrid the infrastructure has been increased significantly. So as the hybrid environment is gaining popularity, what happened that attackers also started looking into it, and as that this setup provide them in a broader attack surface, as the assets are included in the on-premises, the assets are included in the cloud, right? So generally what happened, like at the same time in the cloud, there are a lot of, cloud apps, they were talking to each other and they were talking to one another, and then they're talking to on-prem systems as well. And these cloud apps has been, configured with a different set of identities with a different privilege levels. And so this gives us another chance for an attacker to break in. So due to its complex nature, the hybrid setups are often misconfigured, and there are a lot of security loopholes seen which attackers can abuse. So we observed several examples of impacting, large-scale hybrid attacks where the attackers were exfiltrating data, exfiltrating a large-scale data, including the compromised credentials, exposed credentials, emails, then source code repositories, sensitive documents, and other data. In some cases, attacker have, used the mass scale backup deletion in order to create a friction at the user level, so which is further complicating the victim recovery efforts. So notably, some nation-state actors also started using the hybrid, like they started pivoting from on-prem to cloud. So there's a nation-state actor called Mercury, which have been seen abusing, the email resources. They were started downloading the mass emails from different employees, and then even they were abusing the web APIs to, send an email to internal as well as the external partners. They are known to perform a destruction in the cloud, like they were deleting all the server farms, they were deleting virtual machines. Additionally, there are few groups which generally what they do is like they create a backdoor in the cloud using the federated identity, which gives them a lifelong access. And this is another topic which we will cover in the detail. So before diving into an actual attack TTPs, we wanted to emphasize on one thing, like Microsoft offers several guidelines to make hybrid environment more secure. So Microsoft recommend that secure your identities with proper credential hygienes, enable all the conditional access policies, follow Azure identity best practice guidelines, and then turn on the Microsoft Entra protection. So these are just few which I talked about, but there has a comprehensive guideline on the best practices available online on the Microsoft website. So the attacks we are going to discuss in the future slides, they are mostly caused due to the misconfiguration occurred in the hybrid environment while setting up. So organizations should follow these recommendations along with the best practices to enhance their security posture. So in order to understand what is hybrid, we have to understand like what hybrid boundaries are, right? So when the organization expand their cloud presence, they need to ensure that there is a seamless access to their users, right? Since the on-premises systems are very different from the cloud system, they work on different identity mechanisms, authentication models. The user synchronization is very essential because user doesn't have to deal with like different password, like 5 password for 5 different apps. So that's why what happened, like most of the organizations use Microsoft Entra Connect, which are formerly known as the Azure AD Connect for credential synchronization. So when the sync service is like the platform is in place, the user can authenticate any cloud service like Office 365 or Azure using the same domain password they have. So generally, while configuring this Entra Connect, there are several single sign-on methods you can use, such as password hash synchronization, pass-through authentication, federation with ADFS, this is Azure Directory Federation Service, and then federation with PingSep. So by default, when the first time Entra has been connected, like Entra Connect has been installed, it is by default set up by the password hash synchronization. This means that all the user and their hashes of the password hash has been synchronized to the cloud from the on-premises domain. So two important pointers to note here is, first, the clear text password and the original hashes of the password has not been synced to the cloud. Second is the security group, like built-in security groups, like for example, domain administrators are also not been synchronized. Generally, the hash synchronization occurs like every 2 minutes, and by default, the password expiries and the account expiries is also not synced. So that means if there is a password expiry happened on-premises, cloud doesn't know about it, he has to wait until the user goes and reset the password and it goes and sync again, okay? So when the PSS is configured, some privilege accounts has been created. So, and those privilege accounts having heavily, given permissions. So the first account is called msol _ the installation ID, so random ID generated. It is created on the on-premises Active Directory. So this account has a DC replication permissions and can perform like DC sync attacks. The second account called sync _ the server name of the server name where the Entra Connect is installed, and the installation ID. So this account has an ability to reset any password of a hybrid user in the cloud. So if the user is in the cloud, they can change it despite of like this user is, sync, not sync, cloud only, like that. So, and here, this is the time when threat actors crosses the boundary. This is an opportunity for them to get into an hybrid. So as discussed in the previous slides, when the Entra Connect is configured with the password synchronization, like password hash synchronization, there are 2 main accounts has been created with very high privileges, right? So these 2 main accounts, so the password of these 2 main accounts has been stored in the local, like in the SQL DB, which is generally on the server where the Entra Connect is installed. So by default, this database is stored with the name like adsync2019.mdf or adsync.mdf, but user can like anyone can change the names. However, this is the by default thing. So this the table in this database has been generally encrypted with the DP API because we need a higher level privileges there. And then generally what happened, like attacker can extract a plain text credential by accessing this database. So generally what happened, if the attacker obtain a higher privileges like a local admin on that Entra Connect server, or a domain administrator, or a DP API key, then what they can use these privileges, and they can use the tools like AAD internal or AD Connect to facilitate this extraction by simply querying into the database and decrypting the plain text password from that. Now, once they get the sync, like msol password, they can perform a DC sync attack. They have all the users. Another thing, like once they get the sync account, they can reset a password of any hybrid user and they can use it. So in the recent attack, which we just blogged about like last week, we tracked a group as a Storm 501, which is a financial motivated group. So the attacker, what attacker did is like they extracted the syncs password. They resetted the hybrid the user of in the cloud. They got into Azure, and then they obtained the access token for Microsoft Graph for further intrusion. So generally, Microsoft recommends that the organization should deploy the intraconnect on the domain join server and restrict the administrative access to domain administrator or other highly tight control security groups. So this is the one recommendation, but we just released a full guidelines on like how this intraconnect should be configured. So another attack, so generally another attack we see which pivot from on-prem to cloud is the Golden Samuel. So I know like most of you might heard about this attack, this very popular attack. So this attack is specially designed for an environment configured with the ADFS, with the federation services. Now in the normal scenario, what happened, like if a user wanted to access any cloud service, they go to cloud service, say, hey, I want to access you. So cloud service redirect them to the ADFS authentication. User add all these like their credentials, and then ADFS authentication happened based on the domain policies, like using all the multi-factor authentications, authenticator, other things. And once that is done, ADFS server, it returns a signed SAML token to the user machine. And then user can present that signed SAML token to the cloud service, say, hey, I have a valid signed token, can you go and authenticate me? Now here, attackers abuse this. So what they do is, first of all, they need to create a forced SAML token and sign that SAML token. In order to do that, they should have an access to the ADFS server. So first they compromise the ADFS server. Second is they should have access to the ADFS service account, which generally required to query the database where all these keys are stored. So generally what happened in the attacks, the attackers compromise the NTLM hashes of this service account using mimikatz or the AMP packets. And then attacker needs two main secrets. One is the distributed key manager private key, and second is the token signing key, which is stored in the ADFS database in the encrypted form, and only the private key, the first private key, can decrypt it. And this database is only accessible with the ADFS service account. So generally what attacker does is, like, once they get hold of the service account, they launch the command prompt with the service account, and then they started dumping these credentials using tools like ADFS dump. Once that is done, what they do is they create a forged token, SAML token, which is unauthenticated, using the tools like AAD internal, and then sign that token using this two pair of these two keys. And then once they have a valid SAML token, they can present it to any cloud service. They can directly log into Azure portal. And then after that, they can perform like whatever the attacks are. So now a few tools are there, like Shimit is a tool which can replicate the Golden Samuel attacks. So Microsoft incident response, which we talked about, like they created a very good guideline. They recommend that moving to native Microsoft Entra ID authentication and decommissioning all the ADFS or the federated services. The last attack we witnessed since few days is from on-prem to cloud is cloud session hijacking. Now, cloud session hijacking is a topic of debate. Like, there are a lot of ifs and buts in the attack. So the attacker gain unauthorized access to the user's active browser session, and then present that cookie to the to the cloud provider to get the active sessions. So generally, what happened, cloud provider doesn't want to give you a unlimited pop-up screen for login. So that's why they generally save these session tokens on the disk in the form of access token or PRT, that is called permanent refresh tokens. So attacker typically compromise the device, and then they get these access tokens, and then they present themselves as a valid user to access into the cloud. That is the first attack. The second attack is what happened as everything is synced together. There are multiple users which have a presence on both cloud and the on-prem. So they compromise a user which has a corresponding account at the cloud, mostly having the same passwords, and then they go and log in directly to the Azure. Now, a lot of time what happened, the passwords are not same. Then they have a sync account, like sync account password, so they can reset their password anytime in the cloud. Now, if the MFA is enabled, the attacker, what the attacker generally does is it generates an MFA fatigue. They go and bomb, give pop-ups to the user, so user frustrated and accept the MFA sometimes. So that is, they take a chance, or they create a social engineering, they do the social engineering tactics to extract all the MFA secrets. Now, in this presentation, as like till now, we discussed about like the shift from on-prem to cloud, right? But there are another lateral movement which is possible, which is a cloud to on-prem. So generally, what happened like attackers achieve this with the various ways. Now, cloud providers offers us several management solutions for an administration. For example, Microsoft Intune Management works very similar to GPO in their Active Directory. Second is the run command feature. Run command often referred to the hybrid connectors. What it does, it's allow users or administrator to execute the PowerShell command on the Azure VMs using the VM Connect. Now, generally the threat Octodempest, what we observe is like Octodempest utilizing the Intune management and the run command features to deploy RMM tools to give the additional compromise. So they go and compromise additional virtual devices, virtual machines, and then do the further attack. In another attack, what we observe, like attacker were using this run command to deploy ransomware on the users, like on the virtual machines. And due to that, what happened, there are a large impact, generating the large impact. And finally, the attacker creates a persistent backdoors in the cloud by setting up new federated domain. So what they do is like first they acquire a domain and like global admin privileges, and then they create a new federated domain. Malicious, like you can say a very different federated domain, and then they create a trust boundary between the compromised domain and the new federated domain. So they can anytime come to that domain, do the lateral movement, reset any passwords. So especially the Storm 501, we saw that the attacker created a federated domain, and then they were accessing the organization tenant using this federated domain and deploying ransomwares on the VMs.
So when we talk about the infrastructure, how can we leave virtualization behind? That's what the threat attacker says. So what we are going to say, like how threat attacker plays with virtualization, right? So in simple, ESXi is a bare metal hypervisor, right? Which runs on a hardware and provide access to the resources underlying. In a ransomware attack, what we have seen, attacker are abusing a vulnerability which we have reported some time back and has been patched recently with the mark that CV2024-37085. It's a very simple vulnerability where it says like if any group with name ESX admin is being created into an org, it will automatically have all the privilege, full admin privilege in that org. Or if not that good, because for creating a group, a domain user might have the permission to create a group, right? So if it does not have, the worst part is if a user renamed any group with a name ESX admin, it will automatically assign the full privilege to that as well. So that makes it even worse. The first thing that we talked about, the creating a group, that we have already seen being abused in the wild, but the second one we did not. But good thing is this has been patched recently. After getting the full access admin privilege, attacker in our case did some pre-encryption activity like shutting down the VM, deleting the snapshot so that they can't come back or revert it back, or targeting a specific file. Once done with pre-encryption, they just targeted a VM-related files on that specific path, which generally stores a default path via vmfs/volume on ESXi server. So this is how they targeted the ESXi virtualization, where they easily destroyed the environment of virtualization. This is the attack that we talked about recently, where it all started with a complete chain, and then come the last part on ESX virtualization and the impact. So before wrapping up, just mitigation that we want to highlight here, like it's better to save than later. Then user education is the key that we always talk about, the initial infector vector. Then the assessment of user permission and the credential hygiene is a good thing. The critical asset posture, which we have identified very important thing, where the critical assets are not being actively monitored or protected, is one of the major thing that we have identified, which is leading attack to a later stage. Also, the usage of tools which is being used in the organization, like RMM tools, they are benign, but if the organization are not using it widely, they should be monitored. With this, I would like to conclude this, and thanks everyone for attending the session.